In 1863, an English actress named Fanny Kemble walked this road. Of it, she wrote, "I returned home along the riverside and stopped to admire a line of noble live oaks beginning to be smothered with white moss, pale, trailing masses like huge, hoary ghosts. The mixture of these streams of gray-white filaments with the dark foliage is extremely beautiful. And mingled in the foliage, every shade of green from the pale, stiff spikes and fans of the dwarf palmetto to the dark canopy of the magnificent ilex, bowers and breaks of the loveliest wildness, where one dare not tread 3 steps for fear. What a tantalization! It is like some wicked enchantment."
Cherry bell, don't ring. Cherry bell, don't moan. Don't you hang your head.
I'm John Ciardi, and the program, Accent. We come this week to St. Simon's Island, one of a chain of low-lying, wooded, and fertile islands that fringe the coast of Georgia. They are called the Golden Isles. Here in the late 18th century, the plantation system developed grandly and rather rigidly. The slaves on these plantations had no contact with the mainland. Here, too, for there were smugglers' ports in the islands, the very last of the African slaves to arrive in America were landed. Most recently from their native roots and most isolated, these slaves were closest to their home tradition and least subject to contacts that would tend to dilute it. After the Civil War, moreover, the slaves now liberated were given considerable tracts of land on the island. Already isolated by sea, they developed their communities in the further isolation of the deep swamps and marshes. Here, therefore, on these coastal islands, there survives the original African-American tradition. Here today, still extant, one can find something like original American Negro folklore, most arrestingly in the dancing and singing of these islanders. With our guest today, folklorist and musicologist Alan Lomax, we will take a look at this great musical tradition and, in part at least, trace its continuity from native African roots.
Gonna eat at the welcome table. I'm gonna eat at the welcome table. Some of these days. I'm gonna eat at the welcome table. I'm gonna eat at the welcome table. Some of these days.
The new Polaroid automatic camera for finished pictures in 10 seconds.
Everybody. 325. Everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
You're watching the world-renowned composer Igor Stravinsky rehearsing the first work he's ever composed especially for television, Noah and the Flood. One of the most eagerly awaited events of the season, Noah and the Flood retells the biblical classic in a brilliant blend of music, dance, song, and narrative.
Now, what I would suggest, you don't have to stay and wait there.
Here, the center of attention is George Balanchine rehearsing members of the New York City Ballet in the choreography he has created for this dance drama. An eloquent interpretation of a timeless epic, Noah and the Flood, with Lawrence Harvey narrating, Sebastian Cabot and Elsa Lanchester giving voice to Noah and his wife in a Golden Showcase special Thursday, June 14th, over most of these stations.
Alan?
Hello, John.
Don't get up, you look too comfortable.
Well, they're my friends Peter Davis and Joe Dixon come and run across the marshes of Glen after a hard day's fishing and singing as they come.
They're singing, and what they're working at seems to be inseparable.
Yes, it's an old continuity of this work song business along this coast, 250 years anyway, and of course it goes back to Africa, the continent of work songs to begin with. Africa has special problems, the heat, the jungle, the long distances, and the people of Africa have worked out a system of communal work groups that have solved their problem for them. And the spark in these groups is provided by the work song leaders. They have songs for every kind of work, including arguing law cases.
Electrocution by lyric?
No, not quite that, I guess. Not head chopping by rhythm. But they brought this tradition with them when they came here as slaves, and I suspect that it was these songs that gave them the heart, more than anything else, to endure the hard labor they had here under the hot southern sun.
And slapping these horseflies.
Yeah. 14 hours a day under the driver's whip. They kept alive by these songs. I asked an old man once why they sang, and he said, well, I'll tell you, boss, you start singing right after breakfast, and when you look around, it's dinner time. The songs took their mind off the rigors of their labor, the hot sun and the oppression that they sometimes endured.
How many kinds of work songs are there in this part of the country?
Well, across the South, you could name a dozen or 20 types. But the kind of songs that are most important here are the sea shanties. In fact, this coast gave many shanties to the clipper ship days. And in a moment, you're going to hear one of them as they pull the boat up on the bank.
Join the band, go right, come join the band. Already join the band, come along, come join the band. Already join the band, come along, come join the band. Already join the band, already come join the band. Already join the band, come along, let's join the band. Already join the band, big boy, let's come join the band.
Well,
There's going to be some fish fry tonight.
yeah, you're the real Georgia fish fry, and I'd like you to meet one of the people, one of the principal singers here.
I'd like to.
Bessie, come here just a moment. Mrs. Jones, this is John Ciardi.
How do you do, Mrs. Jones?
How are you?
Bessie Jones is
Glad to meet you.
one of the people who really knows the old songs here. Bessie, what's going to happen next?
The fish fry, we have buzzard loaf next on the
The
fish fry.
buzzard loaf.
Buzzard loaf.
Well, let's see it in a moment. John, this buzzard loaf is really a fascinating thing. It's probably the oldest surviving African dance on the continent. In the dance, the principal solo dancer leaps out into the singing circle and mimes the action of a buzzard after carrion. You'll see it all in a moment. But the exciting thing about this dance is the text, probably. The text says, "Throw me anywhere, Lord, in that old field. I don't care where you throw me in that old field." It's a poem right out of the heart of the oppressed slave. He's saying, I'm just to you as a piece of carrion, but I'll survive somehow. And as Bessie has told me, her ancestors told her grandparents told her that when they sang this song, they identified themselves with Jesus, who was buried in the field.
Thrown in the field. And,
yes.
And the buzzard is a kind of arrival of judgment.
That's right.
I'd like to see this.
How you treat me Show me anywhere, Lord. Show me anywhere, Lord.
And off goes the buzzard.
Yes, Johnny, there you see the most primitive dance probably on this continent, except among American Indians.
Are all the dances African in origin here?
Well, really, of course, they are. But this one, with its typical African circle, the singing leader, and the dancer involved with his whole body and dramatizing, this is really Africa transported to America. Now, in these dances, you can see the origin of the things that came later in the minstrel show, the Negro reel, the ragtime, jazz, and on up to the twist. You can see those elements, but in a cruder form, because these country people still have the agility to dance to this polymeter that you saw them clapping.
Remarkable stuff.
But many of the dances, of course, are strongly influenced by European origins. For instance, these children over here, they're dancing an old English circle game that probably goes back to pre-Christian times, but with the kind of verve that is typically Southern Negro.
That made some changes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to watch.
I never went to college, I never went to school, but when I went to see my dad, no, I went to school, to the front, to the back.
Is this satire?
Unconscious satire, the way children change the things that the teachers try to teach them. Their imagination's going to win out every time.
I never went to college, I never went to school, I never went to see my dad, cause no one went to school, to the front, to the back, to the side, 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 to the right, ain't got no reason for all she had done. All right.
One of the great things about children's game is the remarkable compression of them. This is a sort of a drama of feminine life. Little girl's been spanked or reproached by society. She rises, wiping her eyes, and goes to seek her true love.
And there have been some changes made.
Yes, there's a Southern touch in that, all right.
That's fun.
It's the kind of thing that in the slave days, the adults used to play. A real courtship game. And, John, don't you think that down here in this part of the world, people didn't actually choose their mates by dancing?
Where you been? All around the world and back again.
This is another piece of Africa. A complex polyrhythm, beaten out on thighs and breasts.
Hambo, where you been? Nowhere, nowhere, yeah, nowhere, 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 nowhere.
See him use his mouth as a drum?
I should say that's a mixture of African and European.
Yes, it's typical of Southern folk culture. Down here, the peoples from Africa and from Europe have been swapping songs and stories and ways of dancing for 200 or 300 years. For instance, jazz in New Orleans is a blend of Africa and French and Spanish influences. But down here in Georgia, you run into the roots of the whole thing. On this isolated island here, you find still alive the kind of thing that was happening in old Virginia 2 or 3 centuries ago. When the Negro slaves encountered the English, Scotch, and Irish reels, they fell in love with those tunes and that way of dancing. They quickly picked them up and adapted them to their own way of doing things. We know from the records at Williamsburg, for instance, that by 1700 there were already Negro fiddlers playing for the Hunt Balls who were so expert that their white masters just couldn't do without them.
Good heavens.
Was
there any satire in their playing?
Well, I think there was a lot of satire. Yes, there was. And they unconsciously exaggerated the gestures of their masters in moving through the dances. And they made these dances their own. They put a kind of a rant into the tunes that wasn't there before. And pretty soon you had them swinging in things like the Virginia reels and teaching their masters how to do the Virginia reel, really.
I'm going away. I'm going away.
Fun is more fun when the pictures you take are finished in just 10 seconds. Isn't it time your family had a Polaroid land camera?
Go back, like the Mississippi, to the beginnings of American life in a way. Nobody knows just where the first blues began. Perhaps it was with a lonely levee camp worker driving his mule in the heat and singing about the inequities of his life and the iniquities of his white captain who drove him too hard for too little pay. But once the blues got going, it became the dance form of dispossessed Negroes who were then moving into the city, into the small towns, looking for work and not always finding it. Families breaking up, children going without fathers, and people going without love.
Love me, mama. Love me all night long. Love me, mama.
That's the blues. You say then that it began as a wail and ended up as a dance?
No, really, it was always a dance for the Negroes. It was their way of handling the Western European ballroom dance form. Before that, they had danced in circles, or the country dance form that we've already seen in this show. But when they adopted the couple dance, they sang the blues. So the blues have these two sides: the pleasures of sex, the pleasures of life, pouring out melancholy and enjoying the pouring out, and it's become the big song for the whole world now. time Negro Baptist church service, after they'd sung one or two spirituals, there would be a moment of silence, and out of the silence there would rise one of the hymns, a hymn that had come down from the time of Luther, transmuted by the beauty of the Negro's voice into something quite new and magic and strange. And over this strange humming sound, one of the old deacons would begin to ask for deliverance from sin in a direct appeal to the Lord.
Our Father, we come before Thee this evening as an empty picture before a full fountain, praying that Thou would fill us up with Thy mighty love from on high. And again we come before Thee, Jesus, as empty chaff before the driving wind, asking Thee, Jesus, to hold us with Thine powerful hand. Father, I want You to keep us safe under Thine kind hands of love. And Jesus, when it comes down to our time to die, I want You to meet us at the river of Jordan. And should old Jordan be rough, Father, I pray that Thou would bid Jordan to be calm, so that we can cross over in a calm time and live with Thee forever and ever. Amen.
This is John Davis, the leader of this folk community, leading his group in one of the old-time slavery shouts of this area. The words say, "Bright stars shining in glory, give me Jesus in the morning. Jesus been down in the mire, you can go down in the mire. Jesus calls you in the mire. So bend down in the mire, bend down lower and lower. Then you can rise up in the mire." And so John brings each convert into the circle, makes them go down as Jesus went down into the mire of the world, and brings them up into the shining glory of salvation. John, you've just heard a little bit of the music. Come back and stay longer next time.
Alan, I'd like to. I know how much this music and these dances have meant to you for many years. Thank you for taking us into your love.
It was wonderful to have you, John.
Goodbye. Here off the coast of Georgia, we have seen how an African culture has survived to shape some of the patterns of contemporary life. This is John Ciardi. Thank you for being with us this week on Accent.
The tides of human emotion surge ever stronger as the secret storm reaches a new milestone.
You say you don't believe those ugly accusations against Nick and me, but you do, don't you, Peter?
You see him all you like, Myra. And you go right on insisting that he's not the reason our marriage is falling apart. Just be careful you don't do anything to embarrass me or any member of my family.
Just what do you expect me to do?
Deny the rumors, Myra. Just make a simple statement that there's nothing between you and Nick and couldn't possibly be.
You tell me, Myra. Is Nick the reason that you and Daddy can't make up? Is he what's stopping you?
Myra, are you sure you're not trying to hide the plain, obvious truth from me? And from yourself?
These are some of the characters who make The Secret Storm one of TV's most popular dramas. Personalities you'll have a chance to get to know more intimately starting Monday, June 18th, when The Secret Storm becomes a half-hour visitor every weekday on most of these stations.
Carrie Bell, don't we? Carrie Bell, don't mourn. Don't you hang your head and cry. Ain't gonna hurt nobody. Oh, no. I ain't gonna hurt nobody. Oh, no. I'm gonna tell to every cent I live in a bar.